YouTube world, what's that word, man? It's your boy Marko Stats, and this is another episode of Marko Stats Reacts. As you guys can see, I got the We Create Records hat right here. This is the official merch for We Create Records and Marko Stats. Shout out to A Spade, shout out to everybody that's on the label. We do music, we do parties, DJing, production. We taking over the media game, we're taking over the YouTube game. We do it all, If you need for us to take a look at your career, take a look at your content, and see how we can push it to the next level, make sure that you contact us, contact me, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. But today we have a special episode because we're going to be reacting to a video that's called Pushing 30, Ageism in Music. And this is a topic that people talk about a lot on Twitter and on socials, is at what age should a rapper stop rapping, stop making music? Because in other genres, we got guys going on tour that's 50 years old, 60 years old, still going on tour. But for some reason, when it comes to hip hop, there's kind of like an age limit, There's an age limit that we kind of all just know as this imaginary rule. Like, okay, when you get to 30, when you get to a certain age, it's time to start thinking about other things if you still haven't made it to a certain point. So that's kind of like the unspoken rule, that's in hip hop. So now we're about to watch this video on it. Shout out to this creator. It's my first time reacting to one of his videos. His name is Haji. So shout out to Haji for making this video. I haven't seen this whole video. I started watching like a little bit of it and I thought it was cool. So I just wanted to react to the whole thing on here. So without further ado, let's get into it. Pushing 30, Ageism in Music. Let's go.
Seeing these two rappers running towards the camera with the facial track. Flyana Boss ran TikTok in 2023. Literally. You couldn't open the app in 2023 without hearing, "Hello Christ, I'm about to sin again," and then seeing these two rappers running towards the camera with the facial tracking and zoom. They quickly gained a following on both TikTok and Twitter. And it's not hard to see why. They were easy to root for. They were two young girls hustling on the internet. They were going viral with consistency in bars and a visual style that to a lot of people was new. The song in those videos, "You Wish," became a breakout hit for the duo, currently sitting at over 50 million streams on Spotify, and earning a remix with fellow viral female rapper Callie and the legend Missy Elliott. It got them a spot on tour opening for Janelle Monáe, and the only reason it didn't get them a record deal is because they didn't need one. They already had one. They had signed to Atlantic Records 2 years before the virality. It seemed like the sky was the limit for them in 2023. But like a lot of artists who go viral on the internet, maintaining that attention has been a challenge. Atlantic still hasn't let them put out an album. And while they've put out music that people who liked You Wish would probably also like, they've had trouble replicating the success of that first viral hit. Life has also been getting in the way. One of the members had a baby in 2024. All of that culminated in people recently asking on Twitter, "Hey, whatever happened to these girls?" And one of the most popular responses to that tweet provided an answer that you might not have predicted. It wasn't that replicating viral success is hard, or that one member went through a pregnancy and now has a baby, or that they still hadn't dropped their album because being signed to a label is complicated. It was that people found out they were 30. It got to the point where they actually had to log on and clap back and clarify that they weren't actually 30. And while
I swear, y'all, there's this whole thing on Twitter where if you're 30 and you still make music or you're still a content creator, then it's almost as if it's forbidden or it shouldn't be a thing at all. Like people really feel a certain type of way about that.
their actual age is unclear, they're likely to be somewhere in their mid to late 20s. The discourse started after their virality because in an interview they said they were in college listening to Ray Shremmerd. Me too, guys. To be fair, there are almost as many people on the internet defending them from the ageism as there are people making fun of them for it. But the discourse has left me fascinated with the concept of age in music. Something about that big three in the tens place seems to scare the hell out of a lot of people. And you don't have to tell me twice, I have about 8 months left of my 20s personally. And as someone who also makes music, maybe music that some people would call young music, This is a topic that, is pretty relevant to my life. Is there an expiration date on making a certain type of music? What, if any, aspects of music should be reserved for people who still can't rent a car on their own? Or is the playing field different depending on what you're known for and how long you've been known for? What about on the listener side? Once you hit 25, is it time for jazz? Is there no more room for youthful music? If I listen to Netspend, am I going to end up on a watch list? Or is it just as simple as good music is good music, no matter how old the creator or the listener is? Let's get into all that, but first, if you like videos on music like this one, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe. Being almost 30, I have about 8 months left to catch Anthony Fantano before they put me in a retirement home, so I've got a lot of work to do. But seriously, I post a video on music every week. If you want to see them early, you can go to my Instagram, Haji Gaviota, throw me a follow, and join my broadcast channel. I post all my videos in that broadcast channel one day early for free. Also wanted to say thanks to everyone who's checked out my song Walk You Home from my group Elmjack. We have another song coming this month, A Bother, featuring Just End, dropping on March 19th.
I gotta check out your music, bro, because this music video looks interesting.
So stay tuned, it's gonna be super fire. All right, back to the video. We gotta start by acknowledging that the idea of what's old in entertainment and the idea of what's old in real life are totally different. If you live in a country in the Western world, your life expectancy is likely to be around 80 years. People who are, so to speak, pushing 30 are barely a third into their lifespan on average. But show up on Twitter or TikTok and say that you're 29, and certain people might invite you to the unction, or post that one video of the old Kevin Garnett Nets highlights, or ask if you remember them from Miss Ishtar's irrigation class back in ancient Mesopotamia. It creates this interesting dichotomy for an artist in their mid to late 20s. Because if they call themselves young around industry people or record label executives, they might get a scoff or a chuckle. But if they call themselves old around regular people, they're gonna get slapped upside the head. A pop singer named Lola Blanc acknowledged this in the first paragraph of a piece that she wrote for Vice back in 2015 called How Ageism Kills the Careers of Women in the Music Industry. There's a part of me that's terrified to write this. I'm a singer and a songwriter, and as a female who's not yet a household name, I can't help but feel the familiar, deep-seated fear that being open about this fact will lead to my professional demise. I'm fighting it. Here goes. I'm 27. In the article, Lola goes on to detail things that she's heard from managers and
I'm 27, what? By the way that she was talking, you would think that she about to announce that she 47, but that's an example of just how crazy people get when they find out that you a certain age and you make music. And I honestly feel like it comes from the fact that most people who are 27 and who are in their 30s, they don't have the luxury to do any type of art, any type of like creative field. They can't even fathom it because that sparkle of creativity that they once had back when they were in high school and back when they were, teenager, early 20s, it's gone. Society completely sucked that completely out of them. And they can't fathom that there's people out there that's the same age as them that actually get to live in this fantasy world where they can make money from their content, from their music, from their creativity. They can't even fathom that this is a thing, and they hate it so much that they're like, oh man, just go start a family, just go act your age. And then you got people who are younger who's looking like, bro, you're 27, you're 30, and you're still trying to chase the same dream that I have, and I'm 17 and I'm 18, and it's just this whole thing where I really feel like it stems from hate. You feel me? I feel like a lot of things stem from hate because when you look at it from an aspect of love, a lot of this shit don't really matter. If you love to make music, if you love to make content, does it really matter how old that you are? I mean, like, if you can pay your bills and if you could take care of your family as a man, as a woman, as anybody, why is it an issue? You know what I'm saying?
Other people in the industry, like, you don't have a lot of time here, or you have a limited window of time, right? This article was written in 2015, and perhaps Lola today is celebrating the success of someone like Charli XCX, who had one of the biggest runs of any pop girl in 2024 with her Brat era, and she was 31 going on 32 for that.
I never knew that she was 31, 32. Like, I barely listen to her music, but I definitely heard of her before. Shout out to her.
Perhaps things have shifted a bit since 2015, thanks to the ageless power of the algorithm. And you know what? Lola herself put out her biggest song in 2019 when she would have been over the age of 30. Her song Angry 2 has over 80 million streams today, so good for her. The truth is, plenty of artists don't find their place in today's music industry until they're already past the age that the suits and the Twitter trolls alike would call young. Breaking through as a musician isn't like graduating high school, where everybody seems to do it mostly around the same age. Some artists like Justin Bieber break through at the age of 14. Others, like the late Charles Bradley, don't get their big break until they're in their 50s. And most artists fall somewhere in between those two. An artist's place in the industry in terms of their veteran status doesn't always align with how old they are. Here's a fun example. Soulja Boy's first hit, Crank That, came out in 2007. The first time anyone had heard of New York rapper Fabio Foreign was on the song Big Drip in 2019. You may be surprised to learn that Soulja Boy and Fabio Foreign were both born in 1990. It makes a little more sense when you think about it.
That's crazy. They was both born in 1990. Soulja Boy is a whole different world generation compared to the generation that Fabio came up in as far as the era of their music. So that's crazy.
Soulja Boy popped while he was only 16 years old, while Fabio grinded for years in New York before he caught some heat with the drill scene. But still, for an artist like Soulja Boy, he's had a full span of a career behind him, ranging from more commercial albums, big hits, weirder underground internet stuff, video game consoles. Like, he's pretty much done it all. With Fabio, he just got out of his first major label deal, he's only dropped 2 or 3 projects, and now he seems to spend his time convincing us that he is the real Plaque Max. They're in totally different points of their careers, and it would make more sense to analyze them from a perspective that included the context of what they've done so far in their career rather than just being like, this guy is 35. Here's maybe a more directly comparable one. Tyler, the Creator, was born in 1991, and his tour mate and collaborator Tizo Touchdown was born in 1992. Tizo is considered to be a new artist, and he's somebody who broke out in that immediate post-pandemic era.
Shout out to Tizo Touchdown, shout out to Tyler Creator. I fuck with both of their music, man. They actually real artists that make real music, and I feel like that's always gonna last longer. And as long as you make real music, you make timeless music, you know, it doesn't really matter what age you are, because time is gonna really tell what's really gonna last, what's really gonna make a true impact. And there's no age range on that. Think of all of the rappers that blew up that was like young as hell that nobody even like heard of no more. You know, like people get over that shit fast, man.
Maybe it's the nails or the hair. What is it, the nails? Or his general youthful vibe and aesthetic. But a lot of people are surprised.
People don't talk about certain niggas no more after a certain age.
To learn that Tizo is a little bit older than they might have guessed. He and Tyler are almost the same age, and yet nobody would expect them to be delivering the same kind of thing right now. Tyler's first major label studio album was released in 2011, and his real breakout project, Bastard, came out in 2009. Tizo's first major label album came out in 2023. Tyler is playing with house money at this point in his career. He's at no risk of losing his established place in the music world. If anything, he's just trying to run up the score to make a better case to be in like the Mount Rushmore of hip-hop artists.
He got better with age. Tyler definitely got better with age.
Artist of his era. Tizo, on the other hand, I'm assuming is working on his sophomore album, which is really a make or break moment for an artist. And
Tizo literally just came out, but I think that Tizo has a great opportunity to have a long run as well, just because his music is timeless. He actually makes real music. He don't make trendy shit. He doesn't just make shit for the moment. And there's nothing wrong with artists who make shit for the moment, but those who make stuff that's timeless, that can be played 20, 30, 40 years from now, those are the ones that usually have longer careers. If you're a true songwriter, true songwriters will always have a place in music.
And he's still in the relatively early stages of telling us who he is, what he stands for, the life that he's lived so far. For Tyler, it's a lot different. People are going into his newer projects expecting him to be developing as a person and changing, and stuff that you might expect to hear from a 33-year-old. If he popped out making music like, I'm drinking every night, I started wearing less and going out more, people would be like, this is a midlife crisis, or maybe like a third life crisis, you know? I don't know if it would be perceived that way for Tizo Touchdown, whether that's fair or not. There are plenty of artists like Tizo where maybe it just takes a little bit longer for them to break through. And for those where it does happen a little bit later than usual, the age number can become a pretty big insecurity. A British artist named Paloma Faith, who had a big hit in 2014 with Only Love Can Hurt Like This, explicitly lied about her age in the beginning of her career, and she opened up about that in 2021. I always knew that my age was going to be an issue, especially as a female artist. I was 27 when I put my first record out, but I told my label I was 23. I looked quite young, so I could get away with it. I read a lot of articles about musicians at the time, and it seemed like every piece about KT Tunstall would imply that she was quite old, even though she was only 27. That really affected me, and I remember thinking, I want to be judged for my music, not my age. Not every late 20-something is treated equally. A lot can be controlled for image and marketing. The critique that we see about Fly and Boss isn't necessarily that they're pushing 30, it's that they're pushing 30 and making the music that they make, doing what they do in their videos, dressing how they dress. Is that a valid critique for Fly and Boss? To me, not really. I think the one thing that gets pointed out in their lyrics a lot is, I said I love you to that man, but I'm not feeling him. But is everyone in their mid-20s at their best in communication and relationships? Not really. Plenty of people are still playing games. I'm not condoning it, it's just a fact. I don't think it's super mature, but it seems pretty nitpicky to be like, they can't be 28 saying that. Image-wise, perhaps it's the elf ears and the colorful outfits that made people think they were younger than they actually were. And they look young, so I do get that. But I'm also not sure I'm following that fully either. Do elves die at the age of 19? Like, they don't make it to their 30s? I actually spent a good amount of time Googling elves for this video, and the ones in Lord of the Rings are actually immortal unless somebody like kills them, you know, like they're not gonna die of old age. So there's no reason why there couldn't be like a 30-year-old elf rapping. You know what I'm saying? None of these things are inherently young. You might argue they're inherently fun, or carefree, or whimsical, or silly, or colorful. And perhaps all of those adjectives are associated with youth. And of course, there's a reason why people want to get in on that youthful energy. It's one of the most reliable selling tactics, not just in music, but in everything. For one, it's perceived to be relatable to the 18 to 25 demographic, who are so sought after by marketers and labels and the powers that be, because they're deemed to be the most impressionable, at least in terms of groups that have spending money. With the way old people are falling for AI slop on Facebook, I'm starting to question that logic, but I do see where they're coming from. There is an incentive for artists, both old and young, to appear youthful and zeitgeisty, because plain and simple, it sells. Some artists are hyper aware of both the allure of being youthful and carefree, and the drawbacks of being spotted hanging out at the party a little bit too long, like that one super senior who didn't go away to college. My favorite example of this is Ken Carson, who had an EP called Teen X in 2020. The EP released the same year he turned 20, but I guess conceivably he could have made most of the songs, if not all the songs on Teen X, while he was still 19, thus a teenager. Ken picked a pretty catchy nickname for himself. It was influential enough for his label boss, Playboi Carti, to name an entire song Teen X on his album Whole Lotta Red later that year. Ken referred to it a few more times while he was 20 or 21, most memorably on the song Teen Bean, when he said, "She like, ain't you Ken Carson, ain't you Teen X?" But at some point, Ken must have come to the sobering conclusion that he could no longer call himself Teen X if he wasn't literally a teen. So in 2022, he dropped an album called X, and on the track title, his first line is, "Ain't no Teen X no more, it's just X." And then later on his most recent album, A Great Chaos, he refers back to that "Ain't you Ken Carson, ain't you Teen X" line from Teen Bean, but instead says, "She like, ain't you Ken Carson, ain't you X?" If you think about it, Ken Carson was actually the first entity to rename itself X, because Twitter didn't do it until 2023. This also might be the deepest dive that anyone's ever done on Ken Carson lyrics, but
What about DMX? What about XXXTentacion? Like, history repeats itself, y'all.
that's just the type of shit that you get up to when you're young, lit, and 29 like me. One of the more common rapper prefixes is young, whether it be Jeezy, Thug, M.A., Dolph, rest in peace, Boy Never Broke Again. Jeezy, who is currently 47, made the decision to drop Young from his name around 2010, when he was 32 years old. When he first started rapping, he might have been Young Jeezy. But by 2010, that was just Jeezy, you know? Young Thug is actually right around that age now, but he might have bigger fish to fry than worrying about what his name is. I do kind of wonder how long he's gonna be young.
I low-key feel like Young Thug can be Young Thug forever, bro. And like people just gonna be like Young Thug. Like, it don't matter how old Young Thug is, he's still Young Thug to me. Before now.
Young Thug for. NBA Youngboy, still somehow only 25, so he might be NBA Youngboy for a minute. The Lil prefix in rap is one of the more ambivalent ones, because they could be Lil because they're young, but they also could be Lil just because they're Lil, like just because they're short or small or diminutive in some way, you know what I mean? Bow Wow dropped the Lil from his name in 2002, telling MTV, "I changed my name because I'm getting older now and it's too many Lils." But he was literally a child when he was Lil Bow Wow. So I think that example is kind of an outlier. There are plenty of grown man rappers who are Lil something, you know, Lil Wayne. But to me, that kind of falls in the same category as being a junior. You know, like Ken Griffey Jr., Robert Downey Jr., RFK Jr., something like that. It just implies that there was a bigger and older version of you at some point, so you had to be the Lil them. You don't drop Junior when you get older. I mean, Junior Soprano was a junior until he was...
Lil Wayne is Lil Wayne because he a little nigga. He like 5'3".
in his 80s. Forget about names for a second. I don't think that there's a set age where an artist has to stop talking about something because they're too old for it. Juicy J's hit single Bands to Make Her Dance, where he says, "You say no to ratchet, Juicy J can't," came out when he was 37. But I don't think there were that many people who were like, man, come on, get out of the club, go coach a high school football team. Drake is around that same age now, and he does get criticism from people for not maturing enough in his lyrics. I think he's an artist who, because he has so many pockets and so many bags, so many different things he's done across his career, whenever he drops a project, there will always be a disappointed cohort because they wanted more this Drake or more that Drake, and what they got was a different Drake that they weren't necessarily hitching their wagon to. But I actually thought on his most recent project, Some Sexy Songs for You, at least on the outro, Greedy, which is one of my favorite songs, I can hear him getting a little more mature in his assessment of his own relationships. Can't imagine how it feels.
If he even wrote it.
Feels to be in love with me for real. When I disappear for days, you convince yourself you're to blame. It feels like an honest acceptance of some of his flaws. Compare that to another R&B classic Drake song that's like a late track on an album, Fire and Desire.
Oh, I thought that he was gonna bring up that song where he said he gonna retire at 35. I'm assuming everybody 35 and under. That's when I plan to retire. I already got it covered. Some shit he said.
From Views, which is about a decade old now, which is kind of crazy to think about. He said, "I ask you what I need, you say a guarantee. I mean, you say that like it's easy." It sounds like a girl just wanted a little bit of a commitment, and he avoided it, but he didn't take responsibility for it. So I actually do see some growth from Fire and Desire to Greedy. So I want to give Drake some props. But it is a reminder, that maturation is going to look different for different artists because they're all in different contexts. They're all coming from different places, starting here and ending up here. And so depending on where they start, where they end up might look totally different. Drake still does make some music for the club, and some people get on him for that, saying he's too old for it. But interestingly, I don't remember as much complaining about Juicy J or an artist like 2 Chainz, who, when he was dominating, making his most popular music, he was in his mid to late 30s. Fabio was pushing 30, making songs with a 19-year-old, 20-year-old Pop Smoke. And nobody said anything about it because they had amazing chemistry musically and they seemed to have a genuine friendship and relationship outside of music. It feels selective. We decide whether we like the product first, and then if we don't like it, we use the age as the vehicle to complain about it.
I agree with that because good music is good music regardless of how old you are. So I do agree with that. If you older and you making some whack shit, you know that people gonna joke about your age. You know that shit coming, especially if you making young nigga music. But y'all did see the old YN, the oldest YN. That nigga, I'm 41 years old, bitch, I'm finna bug up. I'm 41 years old, bitch, I'm finna bug up.
Part of the conversation makes me want to revisit that Lola article about being a 27-year-old pop girl. There is an aspect of
bitch, don't make me bug up
of sexism in this age argument, and I think it's worth taking a deeper look at. We talked about the Jeezys, the Drakes, the 2 Chainzes of the world. If a male rapper broke out in their early 30s, you think they would receive as much pushback as a 27-year-old girl in a record label meeting? I don't think so. When the industry sells female artists, their ideal way of doing so is focusing on beauty. And if they sign an artist at 27 instead of 22, they theoretically would have less years to exploit that beauty because they don't know how the artist is going to age. I think this is bullshit. This is not something that I co-sign. And to be honest, there are plenty of examples that go against that. SZA's in her mid-30s, and she's never been more popular than she is right now, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And as someone who understands the power of marketing, and I do enjoy...
I love SZA, y'all. I just wanted to say that. I love SZA. SZA, if you listening to me, one day we gonna meet, and it's gonna be magic, baby. Just letting you know that.
Looking at it and breaking it down sometimes. At the end of the day, I want the music industry to be a meritocracy. I want it to be about who makes the best music and not who makes the best Super Bowl commercial to sell the music. I can see that seep into the complaints about Flyana Boss. In 2023, they were probably like 26. Bossman D-Lo is 26. Is anyone telling him that he's too old to be doing what he's doing? No. So there definitely is an aspect of...
Bossman D-Lo is definitely not old, folks. He rap like an uncle, folks. He rap like an older uncle. Like, that's his style. Like, he rap like an uncle. You feel me? Like, he don't rap like a young nigga to me. You know what I'm saying? But people fuck with it.
Sexism in this argument. The reality is we shouldn't be telling Bossman D-Lo or Flyana Boss that they're too old to be doing what they're doing, at least in my opinion. The fact that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to age and maturity and expectations is why the type of ageism that we see with Flyana Boss is so silly. they are new artists. They are still young, and they're still giving us some of their earliest ideas. Why does them being closer to 30 than 20 take away any of the enjoyment from it? Outside of music, there's an argument that in our society, our timeline for success and leaving the nest is getting pushed further and further back. According to urban.org, the average age that someone's moved out of their parents' house has pushed back from 23 in the 90s to 26 or 27 now. There are a lot of reasons for this, the most likely being that it's less and less realistic for adults in their mid-20s to be capable of buying a home financially. There's the aspect of dating and less people getting married at that age now, especially in like big cities. So couple that with this pushback on people's timelines, and then add in, these growth stunting events like the 2020 global pandemic, and it's no wonder that people in their mid to late 20s are still saying, I love you to that man, but not feeling him. That post-college getting your life together purgatory has expanded. What's really interesting to me is you look at these statistics that show you that people are more and more likely to be in their mid to late 20s living like they are in their early to mid 20s. And from there, you might expect that they would want artists that they could relate to in that aspect. And to be fair, a lot of people probably do find Flyana Boss to be very relatable. And we're really just looking at the bitterest slice of the conversation in this video. But it's hard to imagine anyone in their 30s or anyone in their early 20s hating on Flyana Boss for being 28. It feels like most of this vitriol is coming from people who are their age. And I think a pretty decent chunk of this discourse is most likely coming from projection. People are frustrated with feeling stuck in their mid to late 20s, wanting to level up in life, but economic situations, global pandemics, things like that are getting in the way of it. So they take it out on these two rapper girls online. What I find super interesting about this critique is that it only seems to apply to people who are in their...
That's what I'm saying. It's like motherfuckers hate on niggas that's 28 and 30 and 40, and we can still create and still, be ourselves and live in this fantasy world amongst a group of people who live in a world that's fucked up, where they gotta work for the man and they gotta work a job that they don't really want to work because maybe they didn't have the courage to put themselves out there and chase a dream. Like that shit is real, and I feel like people be hating on that shit.
Mid to late 20s, or maybe their early 30s, who may have just outgrown the age for it to be socially acceptable for them to be making music and promoting it in the way that they are. On the other end of the spectrum, when old people are doing it, it seems to be celebrated more. When I think about Pete and Boss, a British rap duo of these like 70-something-year-old white guys, most of the comments are super supportive of them. Perhaps it's treated like a bit of a gimmick. It's not put in the same category as the other British rappers. They're not about to be in the studio with Lancey Foe and Fimi Guerrero, but I think the average reaction to them is more positive than it is to artists in their late 20s or early 30s still trying to make it. I've seen a version of this in my own career with my project Elmjack. My friend Rome and I decided to use our dads as the face of the project. We've dropped our first 2 tracks and we have a 3rd one coming out later this month. On TikTok, we post things like, am I too old to start a band? And people in the comments are unbelievably supportive. This isn't just a gimmick to us or something that we just made up to go viral. Rome and I are building out a whole world with this Elmjack thing, and this is kind of just the first phase of it. You just got to stick around and see what we're doing. But the funny thing is, one of the reasons why we were motivated to do it in the first place is because as 29-year-olds, we feel old in music. Like when you turn that camera on, when you promote yourself on TikTok, when you do all that kind of stuff, and you're up against these 18-year-old kids, like I feel the way that my dad looks in that video. And what I'm most curious about is the listener. How does learning the age of an artist affect the way that you consume the music, if it does at all? I work at a high school, and I also take advantage of the gym in the high school and work out so that I can get, if you couldn't tell, y'all can tell, right? And I was down there listening to the Netsband album one day, and I thought it was really funny that I was listening to a rapper who is genuinely younger than some of my students. But at the end of the day, to me, good music is good music. Age might affect the way artists are marketed to you, or maybe if they're marketed to you at all. But I feel like for me, when I listen to something new, there's a couple different categories I can place it in. It's like, I like this, I think this is good, but it's not something I'm gonna listen to every day. Or there's stuff that I'm gonna put in my rotation because it inspires me, it bangs, I enjoy listening to it, And then there's stuff that's just ass. But I don't think the age aspect ever plays a negative role for me. If I listen to a younger artist, they have the room to impress me, and I'm like, damn, there's no way this kid is only 17. But also, if
I don't think I ever listened to an artist and I'm like, damn, this nigga 29, fool. Damn, make that shit sound worse. Like, what the fuck? That shit don't even make no sense. Like, I really feel like this should just be hate, y'all.
If it's missing something, if it's not fully there yet, age is a great crutch because you'll be like, damn, this kid is still better than I was then. And when they really start to figure it out, if they keep working at it, they're going to be hella fire. And if they're a bit older, I don't think that negatively affects me at all. Maybe it's my own perspective of being a 20-something for a couple more months, still trying to make it in music. But when I see an artist that gets to me and has a youthful image, but they're like 29 or they're like 32, then I actually applaud them because I think it's sick that they push through because I know how much BS you had to push through to get there. What do you guys think? Does the age of an artist affect the way that you listen to them? Let me know in the comments. And also, let me know what you want me to cover next. Peace.
Atera is the IT.
Yep. What y'all think, man? Y'all think that ageism in hip hop and in rap is real? I think that is real. You know, people really have an issue with artists being a certain age, making a certain type of music. It's a thing, you know what I'm saying? There's people in their 30s and 40s that make cartoons. You know, there's people who make things for, you know, like there's people who are older who make things for younger audiences. Is that okay? Why do people have a problem with that? I mean, like I said, it's a combination of a lot of things, but I feel like a lot of times, you know, people just can't fathom that at a certain age you're still able to make money from your creativity as if you were young. You know, like people still can't even fathom that, especially if you as an older person is out here working a corporate job doing like regular citizen shit to get your money. You're looking at these motherfuckers like, bruh, go fucking get a real job. Like, why are you 30 something years old still making music, still trying to make it, you know? But it's like, I honestly feel like in 2025 the world is so big and the internet is so vast. There's so many different ways to make money, and I don't think that there's an age limit on, you know, anything that you do to make money, as long as it's legal, as long as it makes sense, as long as you're good at it, as long as you have an audience, as long as you got people that's still willing to buy that ticket, to go out and see you, to make that online purchase, to make that subscription purchase. That's all that really matters. So, you know, like that's how I really look at it. But at the same time, watch out for all the fucking weirdos out there. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be weirdos and everything. You know what I'm saying? Watch out for the weirdos. But for the people that legit make music and they have righteous intentions, like, come on, man. You can't just be like, oh, nigga, you 35. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to listen to you. You know, if it's fire, it's fire. You know, and it's a lot of artists that I know that you guys can name that's older. Like, all the top artists that people talk about is in their 30s for real. You know, Drake, Kendrick, J. Cole, like as far as hip hop. And even people were saying that the Playboi Carti album, they were saying that, oh man, I couldn't get jiggy with that shit. I'm 26 years old. I'm 27. I can't get jiggy with this shit no more. Like, man, bro, I don't understand this shit. But somebody on Twitter literally put up a graph of all of the people that was on Whole Lotta Red, and the youngest people that was on Whole Lotta Red was 29 on the actual album. Playboi Carti's 29. Lil Uzi Vert's 29. Everybody else that was on the album, as far as features, they're all in their 30s. Kendrick is in his 30s. Future's like 40. Jhené Aiko's in her 30s. Who else was on the album? Everybody that was on the album was in their 30s or 40s. Ty Dolla $ign was on the album. He's damn near like 40 or 50. You know, so it's crazy how older people have the ability to make music for a younger crowd, and it's like, of course, the younger crowd gonna hate. Of course, the older crowd gonna hate because they're gonna be like, "What the fuck?" But at the end of the day, I just feel like that's the state of society right now. You know. But what do you think? Make sure that you guys like on this video, comment your thoughts. What do you guys feel about this topic? You know, it's definitely a topic that's being discussed all over the internet every single month, every other week. So let me know what you guys think, and make sure that you guys click that notification bell to be updated on newer videos. I myself make music myself. I got a gang of music that's out right now. I got more music videos dropping, so make sure that you guys stay tuned for that. Click the notification bell and be the first one to be notified once these wonderful goodies drop. You know what I'm saying? But till next time, Y'all niggas know who the fuck I am, niggas. Marko Stats, Marko Swayze, man. Peace out, y'all. Love y'all. Swayze.